we are trying to record the meeting so that sort of you can make reference to it afterwards, and we'll put the recording on the prize website for future sort of reference. Also, for that everybody can hear me and speaking and the speaker speaking, please mute your microphones. We will try to use, in fact, the chat boxes to get your questions. I will repeat the question when it will be there, and then we'll answer the question. We'll get it there. The agenda of this webinar, I will go through slides to present the prize. I assume that for some of you it will be just a reminder. I will go then probably quickly in some of the slides. Then there will be a presentation from our colleagues that will host the grand final on the ISPRA site in Italy. And then we'll have an open Q&A session. So for the prize, I will go through really what are inducement prizes, why we do consider it important for artificial photosynthesis, maybe what could be your interest in participating. Then I will go through what is a challenge. We are trying to challenging you, in fact, and going through some of the role of the contest. So, what are inducement prizes? Just to remind you, this is sort of it's called either challenge prize or inducement prizes, and we are offering a cash reward to whoever can most effectively meet a defined challenge. So it means that it's you have to achieve the challenge before getting the cash, the reward, or this to apply. So the incentive for we do it to as an incentive for innovation towards a specific goal, but we are not specifying all you achieve on the goal. So what is the challenge artificial photosynthesis fuel from the sun? The focus is on the proof of concept. We want to prove that we can really produce fuel from the sun, and to build a fully functional bench scale type prototype device using artificial photosynthesis concept to produce synthetic fuel. We are looking at having the whole process of the artificial photosynthesis integrated in one single device, which means that you collect sort of the solar energy, you do the process, and you get fuel. And this is part of the grand channel, is we will use the fuel produced to power a small engine. On the prize itself, on the eligibility, the contest is open to all legal entities or group of legal entities. There is no restriction of who can apply, wherever being as a type of university, industry, individuals, could be students, could be companies. It can be organization in the EU, or it can be an organization anywhere else on the world. But the only issue that we are sort of making a restriction is that the fuel, that hydrogen as a form of a fuel is excluded, because there exists already a system that can produce hydrogen using solar energy, and the conventional photovoltaic cells for light harvesting and to collect an electrolyzer, which is in fact the system that exists and is commercially available. This is what we are excluding. On the award, we have award criteria, which are looking at technical abilities, sustainability and scalability issues. That's the two main criteria. Roughly in terms of scoring, 80% of the score goes to the technical abilities and 20% goes to the scalability and sustainability. In the technical ability, we are looking at the degree of integration from the light capture to the fuel production, on the device performance, and on the production of the fuel to be used in an engine. On the scalability and sustainability, we are looking at the future potential, like the one having the widest market potential, and what could be the commercial potential of the device. I do mean for that for those two sub-criteria that I just mentioned, we are looking at the potential. We don't expect that the device to be presented or in the competition to have a real commercial potential. Could be, but we are not expecting it. And finally, the grand final. What we are going to do, the grand final, that we are going to take the best 10 applications, and we are going to test them outdoor and have a 48 hours of operation. No, sorry, 72 hours of operation. And at the end, we'll take the fuel and we'll make a test on the fuel. As I was saying, that's probably what is important for you is because of the final test. So we put limitation on the space. So we're looking at a 5 by 5 meters and a 3 meters height. We are looking at a possible, maximum 48 hours to be allowed for the setup and commissioning initial testing. Then the device will be inspected so that it verifies the design, the material as specified in the application when put forward on the deadline. And then there will be a simultaneous unassisted operation of all the device for a period of 72 hours using natural sunlight. We did mention that pure carbon dioxide at pressure of 1 atmosphere and the main electricity and water will be supplied. Then after 72 hours, we'll evaluate the fuel produced and we'll do it through a combustion and powering a small Stirling engine. The deadline for the prize is we had sort of a non-binding we have a non-binding registration of interest of the 29th of June. So, but the closing date, the final one, is the 3rd February 2021. At that date, you will have to submit documents describing your device. There is an application forms already available. We'll organize another webinar to describe a bit more on what we expect to be submitted and what sort of, if you have then any question on the information that we need to submit. The evaluation will be done by a jury between the February and September 2021. So we have a broad range depending on how many applications for the prize that we are receiving. The test that we, the famous grand final, is foreseen to be 1 week, 1 calendar week, and to be done between July and September. That final week, final decision will be taken with our colleague in ISPRA to see and to have the best sort of solar resources. And we expect to make the awards decision and give the awards by the end of 2021, November and December 2021. So as sort of I say, the challenge itself, the award will be 5 million, and the final application is the 3rd of February 2021. So now I will I will try to give the floor to my colleagues in ISPRA, so that they can describe.
Hi, Philippe. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is Nigel Taylor speaking here from the Joint Research Centre in ISPRA. Philippe, can you let me share the screen, or do you have the presentation there you can put on the screen?
Well, you can share if you can, but I'll try to get the files. I thought I had it. Okay. I'm uploading the presentation.
Okay. Yeah, thanks everybody for bearing with us just for a few moments while we do this.
Yeah, it's taking quite a time to get the presentation up.
Well, maybe while it's uploading, maybe I can briefly introduce this part of the presentation. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm speaking to you from the European Commission's Joint Research Centre, which is a department of the Commission, and we work together with Philippe, who works in the Directorate for Research and Innovation. So the Joint Research Centre, maybe Philippe, you need to, can I go on, or can you, let's see. Okay.
I'm not sure that you have it, but
okay. Yeah, okay.
Tell me when you...
Okay. So as Philippe mentioned, the idea is that we would host the grand final part at our site here in Italy, in ISPRA. And so I'm just going to give you some very brief information about the setup, about the location, the procedures, a bit about safety and security, and some open points and points for discussion. So if you could move on to the next slide. Okay, so I think some of you may know where we are, but this is just in case not. So the Joint Research Centre ISPRA site is located where the arrow shows in the very north of Italy, close to the border with Switzerland. And it's actually the third largest site of the European Commission. So after Brussels is the first, then Luxembourg, and then we're actually in ISPRA. We have about 2,000 people. So the site is close to Milan, and so it's very accessible by air, of course, but also by train and other transport means. I'll go on to the next slide, if you could. So the ISPRA site is a large site. It was originally set up around a nuclear facility, but that's now decommissioned. But it comprises a large range of activities, one of which is what we call the European Solar Test Installation, which tests photovoltaic devices principally, but the laboratory has a wide experience with particularly measuring solar radiation and the performance of devices using solar energy. And so this just gives you an aerial view, gives you an idea, and we've already kind of identified a potential area for the grand final event, which would involve creating a test pad for the 10 teams to accommodate the devices, but also space for logistic support, that type of thing. Okay, we go on to the next slide. Yeah, so the critical thing, of course, here is how much sun are we going to have for the event? And so this graph just simply shows you the average daily irradiation in kilowatt hours per meter squared. So this is the total amount of radiation during one day, the average day for each of the months. So as you can see, we're talking about the summer period, as Philippe mentioned, so between July and September. Obviously, July would be the best for in terms of solar radiation. This just gives you a feel for the quantity that you can expect. So ISPRA is it's in the north of Italy, but the climate is it's not fully Mediterranean. It's a little bit less sunny than that. Maybe one thing that we just noticed here, I mean, we can provide quite detailed information on the historical solar radiation at the site. One factor in July is that thunderstorms can occur. So typically, a short an hour or so of thunderstorms. So that's something that we may need to, or for the devices, people may need to bear in mind as well, that we may have some they could occur during the 72 hours of operation. So we go on to the next slide. So I think this is in terms of the overall procedure. So we've just in very general terms, we've foreseen that people would obviously transport their devices to ISPRA at their own cost and responsibility. They'd be given the time, as I think it's 48 hours, as Philippe mentioned previously, to set it up on an outdoor pad, which we provided with the various services. Just note here that so the quantity of electricity and water will be monitored as part of the procedure. There will be the inspections by the expert jurors to verify the design, the materials use, and the inputs. Then we'd have the phase of simultaneously unassisted operation, and then an evaluation of the fuel produced, both in terms of composition analysis and also by powering a small Stirling engine, again, has been mentioned. So maybe we can move on to the next slide. In terms of safety and security, so first of all on access, so the ISPRA site is a restricted access site, so visitors need to have entry permits, and these need to be requested in advance, and so that the entry and exit from the site is tightly controlled. We're going to need information from teams participating in advance about their devices in terms of safety conformity, for instance, the way the gas is being handled, about any electrical circuits conform to the relevant regulations. And the ISPRA Site Safety Office will perform a check on each device from a safety point of view prior to the commencement of the verification test. We go on to the next one. So that's really in very broad terms, I mean, we're obviously also thinking about what preparations we need to make for this event. One thing that we're looking at is the idea of having a kind of a site inspection or workshop event in ISPRA in 2020, so in next year, so more or less a year before the event itself. If people were interested in such an event, it would be a chance to see the site and get familiar with the arrangements. From a safety perspective, we'd be interested in knowing what quantity of gas is likely to be produced in the 24-hour period. We've made a very rough upper band estimate from which we get out about 2.5 meters cubed of methane at standard temperature and pressure. But we would be really interested to hear from potential participants what they think the production could be in the 72-hour period. And this has, well, one aspect is for safety, but there's also practical considerations which lead on to the next point about the collection method for the gas produced and the transfer procedure to the Stirling engine test. I know that one of you has already raised this question already to Philippe. The simple answer here is that we haven't made any decisions about this yet, and so so this is something that has to be decided. I mentioned others. I mean, one other point we were just talking about here is that what the idea is that we have unassisted operation for 72 hours. So we maybe need to think, what do we actually mean by unassisted operation? What technical intervention could be permitted, if any, during that period? How much control the teams would have over their devices, or possibilities to optimize performance or to deal with any issues that might arise. Okay, that's all from me. Back over to you, Philippe. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Nigel. I think it's now the floor is open to your questions. So we have ample of time to try to answer them. While you think about your question and typing, I will in fact read the question that you received through the registration. As Nigel just mentioned, one of the questions was how we will transfer the fuel to the Stirling engine. Well, I think the answer was given. We have not really thought about that yet. It will probably depend of when we know what kind of fuel, if it's more gas or if it's also liquids, or maybe solids, I don't know. I see. I will go through the question we received and then go to the one you are just asking. So we received another question, are thermochemical processes eligible? The answer is yes. I think it's so concentrated solar thermal system are possible. It is maybe a difficulty to fit something on the footprint that we are asking, like a 5 by 5 by 3 meters. But thermochemical process is available. We had another question. What do you consider to be conventional photovoltaic cells? Well, we thought that everybody knew, but we'll say that a photovoltaic cell that can be used either commercially or being done using a standard for just producing electricity. To have a photochemical reaction, this is what we are looking. You could have an integrated photovoltaic cell in a sense that the photoelectric conversion is done within the device and not something which is outside. This will be open, but not what we will call very prosaically a plug and play, that you take a normal cell, you stick it on the device, and then you wire the things into the thing. But if you have some specific question and go, then we may look in more details in what you were thinking of. Does the system need to have been built and be functional by the submission deadline? On that question, I think it's almost it's a very strong yes, but a possible no. What you will have to report at the deadline of the performance of your device. So in that sense, you have to have already having a system in operation. You may have some small details still in the changed, but what the experts juror will do when they will check your device on the during the grand final will be that the device is in that term the same as was set forward on the application. So in a sense, it has to be built or strongly built and be functioning. Part of the function may not be fully there, like the fully automation or the to have a 72 hours operation, but we should have already a device being available. I think we get a question about sort of what should be the minimum production amount on the developed system to be competitive. We didn't put any threshold. So on that, for the amount of fuel to be produced, it's for you to decide. There is no criteria there. Well, there is no specific amounts. And the jury will sort of decide if it's sort of a lot of fuel to be produced is better, or maybe a smaller but higher quality. We have to see. That's sort of the jury to decide. On the TRL level, there is no maximum TRL level, but I think in practice we do not expect to have commercial system being presented, as we excluded the electrolyzer and system. As a minimum TRL, we are looking for a prototype. So probably system which are at TRL 4 are the one sort of that we'll be looking at to be presented. But it doesn't mean that it has to be at TRL 4 now. It could be lower. But as we are looking for prototype, this is sort of what you look for. We had a question, are there clear measures which allow selection of the best developed, or are also soft criteria used? Well, as I just presented on the award criteria, the first part of the technical criteria, which roughly is 80% of the score, I will call it to be, hard criteria, because there we are looking at performance and sort of how the device is being built. The soft criteria, if I understand the meaning of the term, will fit more on the sustainability issue and the scalability of the device, where we're looking more at the potential of our best could be developed and what would be the development. We have a question interested to the duration and the mechanism of funding. But this question is what I tried to mention at the beginning of my presentation, is it is not a typical research project. So we are not funding your efforts to do it. We are just rewarding the team that will be the best team to have succeeded in getting the challenge done. So you have up to 2021, February 2021 to do. So that's out of the scope, and you will have to find funding for yourself. On our side, we are, asking and checking, trying to get sort of individual for the Europeans to have the member states to give you opportunity to fund, as sort of it's open to the rest of the world. Then it's for the country themselves if they are providing funding for doing the research anyway, and for you to compete afterwards. Are they making use of natural or artificial chlorophyll in the process? It could be. As I said, the system is open, so you could use sort of for artificial system, or you could have a mix of an artificial and a natural sort of phenomena. But as I say, it's really, the term is artificial photosynthesis. So the full system is artificial. So it's not natural. So a fully biological pathways, it's not what I would call artificial. If that's sort of behind the meaning of the question. So now I see that there was meanwhile 2 questions that were asked. One was, should we consider using all the 25 meter square? You are not obliged to use the full area surface, and I think it's regarding on the performance. It's sort of, you will define sort of the performance criteria, and this will be judged. Why we restricted the area is to give to everybody the same surface area, so the same insulation to be used. So there will be nobody having a 1 meter square and another one using 100 meter square. So we have the same comparison. But you are not sort of obliged to use the full 25 meter square. Second question, is there a contact person? Well, for clarification on the artificial photosynthesis process and the price itself, you can use the functional mailbox that we have, or you can send a question directly to me. It's a two way to ask questions. So now, I don't know if you have any other questions that you would like to hear. Could we get details on the water supply and pressure and quantity? I think that's Nigel to answer.
Yeah, hi. I mean, we don't see any particular problem about that. I mean, we can provide the specifications of the water supply. That's I don't right. So yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll come back to you with some values, initial values for that.
Okay. We'll make sort of a question that the answer of the question that we can't answer now available through the website. Any other questions? Don't feel shy. You are here, I'm here, and we are here to answer the questions.
One quick thing, Philippe, I'm just saying, I mean, for us, for the water supply, the question is a bit about the quality of the water that teams would be expecting. So whether, I mean, we have a drinking water circuits, well, we also have a demineralized water circuit possible. Yeah. So, okay, well, we'll provide those options and then people can see what they,
okay.
if there's something we need to add.
Very good question. Another question was about shadows on neighboring competitors. I think this is part of the discussion, and then Nigel can complement that we will be looking that there is no shadow effect.
Yeah, one of the challenges from our point of view is to find a big enough area that would allow, let's say, all the teams to have sufficient space around them to avoid shadowing, but also to avoid shadowing from either buildings or trees. So we're working on that, but the intention is to have a shadow-free test pad and equal conditions for all the potentially for all the 10 teams. Maybe one thing here is that we're also trying to figure out, if it's each team would occupy 5 by 5 meters squared, but 5 by 5 meters. So there would also need to be technical spaces in between the teams, and we're trying to factor in that into the equation as well.
In fact, I see that somebody made a comment on the water issue, which could be connected also to pH and the buffer solution in the device. That's true. Any other comments? Questions? It seems that at the moment, none. So what I will sort of mention as sort of maybe as any other business type or of the webinar will be that we intend now to sort of take this webinar as the first one of a series to address different points of the price, being the technical part or being other issues. So in that sense, I invite you, if you have some issues that you think that we should discuss in more details, maybe not as long as this webinar of today, but maybe in an hour or shorter stuff webinar, so we can organize sort of themes. But this is something that sort of we can that we will plan. We plan as a series of webinar, probably to do it one every 2 months. Hopefully we have enough materials to discuss, and the closer that we'll get to the deadline, the more interesting and technical it may become. And also that you will be all the one who registered today to the webinar will receive the information. We will send and we'll put the slides on the website also, but we will send you also directly the presentations. So I again ask if you have any questions. I read silence. So okay. So I think if there is no more questions, we'll close the webinar. Hopefully, the next webinar will be a bit more more question on it. As part of the agenda, we'll put forward on the website the theme for each of the webinar, so you will know a bit more what we want to try to discuss. So I thank you for having registering, for your interest in the prize. I do hope that you will continue working on the prize and be competing. And I see you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Nigel, are you still here?
Yeah, hi.
Okay, maybe when we can continue just afterwards.
Yeah. Hang on, I can switch on our video. Video. Okay.
Oh, I see you.
Yeah. So I'm here with Maurizio Bavetta.
Hi.
Who's
Hi, Maurizio.
deputy unit head, who's also agreed to
Thank
help.
you for organizing this meeting today.
You're welcome. I think it's needed. We need to create a community working on that prize. So that's why I mentioned to have this series of webinar and to have an announcement, so we get something regular coming.
Yeah, good.
Okay, good.
And I think we have a few questions. Yeah, I think it's the issue of, in fact, we may have to start really thinking on is the what kind of not equipment that they will need, of materials that they may need for the device.
Mm.
Maybe some, like the water supplies or some or other issues that they may have and needed. I think this is something we need to start thinking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can write down, let's say let's say we think of let's say for us would be the standard things we can offer, and then maybe we can put that on the table, and then if people come back with different requests, then maybe for instance, the one about the water pH levels, I hadn't thought about that actually. So maybe.
Because quite often they're going to use some maybe a water sort of or liquid medium that have a specific pH requirement. So maybe they will bring it with them. If they bring with them, maybe there is, as you were mentioning, on security and safety issue. So it's what kind of materials they can bring in onto the site.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. I mean, obviously that everybody needs permits and things like that, but I mean, we have contractors coming in and off the site all the time with different types of materials. Okay, there's a bit of bureaucracy, but I don't think it's anything that can't be addressed.
A question for you to get prepared, because I don't know how much details we'll get from the applicants before the deadline. So which means that in a sense, the more information and sure information is from February to July. So
yeah.
So I think it's something is to try to see what we can have more or less fixed for you to be prepared, and then according to what they are going to come up with ideas, we can see it afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Well, we can maybe. Well, if you still have a few minutes, there's a few people still on the line, but I don't know, confidential. But it's, but I mean, from the point of view of the question about whether the gas is how the gas gets from the device to the Stirling engine, and I mean, there it seems like there's only really two possibilities. One, that it's collected on the device and then transported to some type of container and then connected to a Stirling engine, or that's some kind of direct connection. Also there's a lot of things also about the
means of piping.
Yeah, but also to think about the Stirling engine itself. What type? I think we started doing some looking very quickly at the market, but we have to do some more work on that maybe. Okay. So I don't know if you have any specific ideas or
No, I've not looked. Not really look.
Because when I from the internet, it seemed like there's very small Stirling engines that are almost sold as kind of almost as kind of demonstration devices, almost a desktop type of thing, and then some smaller industrial ones of a few kilowatts and things like that. So
I think it's probably we need also to sit down and to see what are the options, and come back, in fact, of your ideas of how much fuel we can foresee to have and to use, and see what we can do. I would be looking for something simple. Okay. Well, I think I'll shut down.
Okay, good. We'll get some lunch maybe.
Okay.
It's important.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Steve. Bye.
Bye.